are creatures of habit, and we all have our daily to-dos that get us ready for the day or a specific event. From daily stretches, reading words of affirmation, to slightly imploding in your car before you clock in. These pregame rituals are part of our coping mechanisms to brave the storm to come. This is Witch Doctor Remedies.
So what are some witch doctor remedies that you've done?
So as soon as my alarm wakes up or my alarm goes off and I wake up, I sit firmly on the edge, put my knees on my elbows or put my elbows to my knees, grasp my forehead and in a very exuberant manner, fuck. Right? Or I walk to my bathroom, I put my hands on the sink and I look myself in the mirror and I'm like, God damn it. You know, get all the negativity.
I've done that too, where you just stare at yourself in the mirror going, why didn't you hit the lottery?
It's like, well, you chose this.
Why weren't you better looking?
Right. Well, you know, you get all the negativity out now, right? Because once the day starts, like there's really, you can't like be holding all that that cloud over your head, because there's going to be other things that would be being held over your head as the day progresses. Right.
Yeah. It just compiles on and on and on.
Right. And I remember like, I think we said this in another episode where there's times where like some of your pregame rituals, like you just like sit in your car or you like on your drive to work, you would like put on some music, maybe a podcast, like ours, for instance, or like just something in a routine, right, to kind of pep you up. Because once you get to work and you know you're going to have like that 5 to however many minute like stare down in as you're in the parking lot, I'm like, okay, all right. It's gonna be a great day.
I think it was you and I, and I don't know if it was one other person, but I know for a while it was just you and I. We'd pull into the parking lot and we'd sit there in our cars listening to whatever, maybe not even listening to anything. Mm-hmm. Might just be sitting there in silence, but we would look at each other like, you get out first. No, you get out first. Do it now.
Right.
You know, like trying to will each other into getting out first. Like, you walk through the door first, not me.
Right. Or like you text you like, hey man, are you here yet? Like, and you know, like, no, I'm not. Like, dude, I'm looking right at you. Oh, yeah. Well, I literally just pulled in. My bad.
And then you just see the seat slowly recline, so
right.
out of frame.
Yeah.
Nah, it's not me, fam. It's another car.
Right. And in whichever case,
it says
right,
U.S. Marine. It has a U.S. Marine sticker in the window.
No, that ain't
me.
Right. And you just kind of like sit there in silence, trying to psych yourself like, all right, it's been like 5-10 minutes. Somebody's got to walk through the door. I guess it's my turn today, right?
Yep.
And you would think like with some of these negativity, like, wow, these guys are really some pessimistic motherfuckers, right? Actually, we're pretty peppy. We're actually pretty nice and very optimistic. But again, it's one of those like the pregame is to get all the negative stuff out of your system, because once you get in, you're like the epitome of optimism, right? Like, especially in the roles that we were in and are in now, it's kind of understood that you kind of have to be the accepting, positive mental attitude of whatever the task is going to be, right? Because if you, the guy in charge, or you, the guy who's inspecting, is already pessimistic to how it's going to be, that's only going to trickle down and amplify and get worse once it actually touches the guys on the floor. Like, well, I have super high doubts that this project plan or this flight is even going to happen today. And without even looking at what they got available, everyone on the floor is like, yeah, this thing's a total waste of time. Like, they'll already start having that mentality before they even assess what's really going on. Like, they're already convinced that it's trash.
Well, I know for me, some of the pregame is I might drink, you know, have a cup of coffee. If I'm working morning shift, I have a cup of coffee on the drive to work, and like, okay, I can listen to whatever I want to listen to, have a good cup of coffee while I'm driving, and just kind of enjoy myself a little bit before I get in. Or if like I'm working on a swing shift, you know, all right, I'm going to drink a pre-workout or whatever else, an energy drink on the way in. But I know halfway through shift, I'm going to make a cup of coffee or whatever else. Or like, I might even bring things like a pastry or a certain lunch item that day. And it just, gives you something to look forward to. Like, yeah, this all sucks, but in 5 hours, I'm going to get to eat that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's some of my rituals as well. Like what I choose to drink on the drive to work, or just something to look forward to, something that, and gets you amped up, right? So you take some pre-workout before you get in, and you're ready to rock and roll. You're walking through the door like, fight me, somebody fight me.
Right. That's kind of how I was, man, when I used to do all my workouts before I go to work. Right. For some people, like working out kind of just drains them and they're kind of tired for the rest of the day. But for majority of other people, like when they do their workouts, depending on how intense it is, obviously, it actually like wakes you up. It makes you all fired up, especially depending on what muscle group or what kind of exercise you did. Like say like you hit the speed bag for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever. Or if you did deadlifts or squats or some shit, right? Like you walk in
power move.
Yeah. Yep. You walk into work like all freaking amped up, like somebody fight me. I just deadlifted, like I just PR'd today. You all gonna get it today.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's little things. You just got to figure out what works for the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people get up in the morning and stretch, and I know as I'm getting older, I find myself doing more of that. You know, I got a foam roller, and so I'll get up for work, and as my waiting for the coffee to be ready, you know, I'll get on a foam roller and maybe just roll out my hips or roll out my legs or something, just to kind of loosen up and not be so stiff for the day. You know, just little things here and there.
Right. I remember the DTM ladies. They had a recent episode where was talking about achieving your goals, where they talk about planning your days out or planning your weeks out, planning your tasks out, whatever the case it is that you do it. Like you actually have a physical calendar or an app or something that kind of gets it going. That goes into like the accountability of things. But maybe that's your pregame, right? Like you put stuff in your calendar planner, or you do some of the things that are in your calendar or planner, like read some inspiration writings or quotes or whatever to kind of start you off on the right foot, instead of just like having your hands on your forehead and screaming at yourself that you didn't win the lottery, you know? But,
yeah,
you know, which is what I've done.
Curling up into a ball and rocking yourself side to side.
Right. Like, why? Right. But sometimes that works too, right? For some people, it's physical. Others, it's more of a mental thing, like reading words of affirmation, for instance, checking out your horoscope on how the stars are going to align for you today, or just lying to yourself, like, today's going to be great. It's going to be a fantastic time. Hell yeah. Today's my day.
Well, to go back to the exercise bit you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So when you would work out before work, like you said, a lot of people, it kind of amps you up or whatever. But I always kind of viewed it as, no matter how bad the rest of the day is or unproductive the rest of the day is, I did accomplish something today. I got to the gym and I did this.
Yes.
So I use that as like, okay, well, even if I get to work and it all falls apart and things don't go as planned and it's hot or it's cold or it's whatever, at least I got something done.
Yes.
Right at the beginning of the day.
Right. And that goes into like routine, right? Like, whatever your pregame or whatever your pre-task ritual is, right? As long as you keep it as a routine, because eventually that turns into habit, and that actually like builds more on the positive, or vice versa. Like if your routine is negative, it's going to become a habit, and it's almost impossible to break the negative routine. And I can attest, there's a lot of people out there, and myself was one of them, where you just kind of start the day negative, and that's kind of like how you go about it.
Yeah, you set the tone for the day.
Yeah. And like you can do a lot of positive shit, but since you kind of had that habit already built in, you start looking for the pessimistic side of things, or like the realist negative side of things, instead of like what they actually were, which is probably a good thing. Like, well, I didn't kill anybody today, or I didn't get dinged on whatever task I had available, or I got it done just in time, not on time, not beforehand or late. It's just on time. I call that a win, man. But again, like it begins with like how you started, right? And like you were saying, like as long as I accomplish that one thing, or at least one thing, then I've done all right. Whether it be working out, whether it be accomplishing a task, whether it be getting something ready, whatever the case may be, right? It's how your mindset is when you get it going, and how you kind of build that into a habit to build you to kind of take you on for the rest of the day. And again, it goes back to as long as I got something done, then I did all right. Or at least that one big thing, then I'm all right.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be something as simple as like, I cleaned up the kitchen before I went to work, but you might really not have done much. Maybe all you did was put away the dishes out of the dishwasher.
Right.
Hey, that's something, right? You're like, well, that was one little task. And if you can approach it to your remedies as like little tasks here and there, whatever, even if it just creates the illusion that you got something done, or anything that puts you in a better mood, right? Like if things are like for my wife specifically, if things seem kind of negative for too long, like things at work or things in life with the kids or just dealing with whatever, she burns what the hell is that thing called? It's called Palo Santo. It's like a stick.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a piece of wood, and she lights it, and it smells horrendous. But she'll walk around the house with it.
Yeah,
and she says it's burning out the bad energies, the bad spirits. So it could be even something like that,
right.
Like people do positive affirmations in the morning.
Yep.
You could get a stinky stick and light it on fire and walk around your house to burn out the energy for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you believe in that kind of a thing or not, I mean, that's up to you. But if you believe in it, maybe it doesn't do anything. Maybe it's doing something. But if you have the perception that it's doing something,
mm-hmm.
right? So I burn this stick, and to me, that's burning out the bad energies. I'm already in a better mood.
Right.
So it could be stuff like that even.
Right. That brings me up to this, or that reminds me of this one graduation speech this admiral gave. He was talking about like make your bed. And he goes,
"Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's a good speech."
Yeah, I don't remember the full thing about it. I just remember like just when you get up in the morning, make your bed. And I'm like, what? And the reason why it goes is like if the day totally turns to absolute shit, like just becomes like a freaking shitstorm of a day, at least you come home to a made bed. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. And so
it's already one task you've accomplished for the day.
Yeah, and that builds onto what you were saying, like just get that one thing done, that one big thing done, or at least that one menial thing. That way, when you come home, that's one less thing you gotta deal with. And so I myself actually started doing that. Like I made my bed, and then it's
with your wife still in it.
make my side pretty. I'll fluff my pillow.
That's some shit I would do. She'd be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm making the bed. The admiral said I had to if I got one task accomplished for the day." She's like, "I'm still sleeping. That's a you problem."
Right. So I'll make it. I make the bed, and my day was whatever. And I come home and I see like a clean bed and like everything's all put away for in the room. Like, this is nice, right? Because other times, like you wake up, you roll out, you have everything set up to just kind of fall into your clothes and whatever, and then you're out the door, and then you come home like everything was exactly how you left it in full chaos as you got ready. I'm like, well, this is how it ends.
Yeah, like the house has exploded when you left, and it still exploded when you got home.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that was fun. One thing that works for me is meal prepping.
Yeah.
Like take a Sunday afternoon or whatever and spend some time and meal prep for the week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're one of those people that can eat the same thing 5 days in a row, then it really works for you. If you're not, then make a couple of different meals or something. But for me, I'm one of those people that can eat the same thing every day. But I meal prep on Sunday, so then I don't have to think every morning, shoot, what am I going to throw together haphazardly into this bag to take to work to eat today?
Yep.
I already know that I have food lined up, planned out. It's just one less thing I have to think about and deal with during the week.
Right.
And so that works for me as well.
Yep. I will say, man, like, I can appreciate that you can eat the same thing more than once every day. I tried meal prepping the same meal, for a few weeks, and by day 4 of eating chicken and rice was fucking disgusting. You know?
Yeah, well, that's when you have to get. That's when you go find a different sauce, right?
Right.
Or a different dressing to put on it, or whatever else. I understand the clean eating and trying to keep calories and all that, but it's something you're like, all right, today it's chicken and rice again, but I got this specific type of barbecue sauce that I'm really interested to try, and
Right.
that'll just change the flavor a little bit to make it not so bad.
Right. Yeah. And I remember like this. I remember when meal prepping just became a big time fad for a lot of wannabe bodybuilders, right? Or guys who are just really trying to watch their weight. They would make these meals and they look like shit and they taste like straight up shit. But they say like, you gotta have a strong brain to eat this, right? Or they'll glorify like making themselves suffer for eating. I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like, if that works for you, cool, right? Because you're not thinking of food as like enjoying yourself. You're thinking of food as just like fuel to get your next workout in. But
And I got to give people credit that can do that. It's one of those. It's not how it tastes; it's what it does for me.
yeah,
Okay, all right, I get that. But like, I also want to enjoy it. If I'm having a terrible day at work and the lunch, and I'm not excited to eat what I brought for lunch that day, I don't know. That's not going to be
right. That's
a good time.
That's just another compounding factor to make your day worse, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Like this sucks,
Right.
along with everything else.
Right. And now some people, right, they use that negativity as fuel to go smash it out and whatever their release is, like going to the gym or taking
Some guys
a couple
are on softball leagues.
Yeah,
that I work with.
Yeah, so like they take all that hatred and like, I'm gonna smash the shit out of these weights today, or I'm gonna take it out on this next pitch or whatever the case may be. Whatever your release is, that's cool, right? Just have a release because like harboring all that stuff in will fuck you up. Now, some of these pregame rituals, like they don't work all the time, so you have to adjust, right? Like sometimes the affirmation is not what you're looking for, or these stretches or foam rolls or whatever. They're just, for whatever reason or other, it's not either being done right or it's not working out. So you adjust, right? Or instead of listening to rock music on the way to work, you listen to some other genre, whatever the case may be, something a little bit more bright and peppy or grungy or just like a fuck the world kind of thing, whatever. But sometimes these pregame rituals are signs that things are like, it's not working out for you, right? Like we mentioned this on a previous episode where you start wanting to transition. If you're adjusting your pregame rituals and it's not increasing or it's not making the positivity go up, then it might be a sign that maybe it's not you. Maybe it's what you're doing. Maybe it's the job itself, or maybe it's the situation or environment you're in. So that can be another thing too. Like sometimes these witch doctor remedies is your sign that you should probably consider moving on.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, things only last for so long, but if you find that it's just not getting better, it's not getting that, and you've tried to change up your routine during your day at work, and maybe it's a job, maybe it's the people you're working around, right? The negative mindset is super powerful. And you can come in, do all your things before work or whatever else to get yourself in a good mood. And you come in and you got that one individual who's just every day is F this, F that. This sucks. Nothing's ever good enough. And then that just infects your mind and it just seeps in and it starts, clouding your thoughts and everything else. And so one of the things you might have to change up, you might have to go to your lead or your boss and say, I can't, can I work with somebody else? I don't want to make a big deal out of this. I'm tired of the negativity.
Right.
And I just want to work something else.
And
that might help. That might be all you need, Yeah. And you might even be working by yourself. But again, I said that might be all you need that makes makes your day better. Just to get rid of that negativity. Now, you had mentioned listening to a different genre of music. One thing that I've done recently is, to and from work, I'll typically listen to podcasts or whatever else. But then after work, we go boxing. And so to and from boxing, I'll listen to like Jack Johnson radio on Pandora. So it's a bunch of island music, real mellow, low key, kind of happy music.
Yep.
And I listen to that in the evening times because it mellows me out a little bit, right? In the boxing, you take your aggression out on the bag, but then just listening to the island music gets you just in a chill vibe.
Right.
I feel for me.
No, I agree with you. And I kind of did something similar, like, but I'll listen to like real loud or real in your face music to kind of like emphasize that I'm gonna go take out my aggression on something, whether it be weights or the bag or whatnot, or the batting cages, something. And then once it's over, then I'll listen to more mellow, more upbeaty music, kind of like to kind of reemphasize, like, okay, you let it go, and it's we're gonna trend upwards, not a flat line or stay neutral, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. And I meant like how you mentioned about changing shifts or changing teams with somebody. I've actually had something like that happen. Like, I cannot work with this dude. Like, he is pessimistic. He doesn't like to get shit done, or he doesn't like to get things done to the pace that we need it to get done. And then every time something changes, like the littlest change, he goes high and to the right. I'm like, I can't work with this dude. I need to change shifts. Sometimes they'll accommodate, but sometimes they won't. You're just kind of stuck with it. And you kind of, that's when at some point you gotta see, like, okay, do I just change up my pregame, or do I gotta tell this dude what's up? Like, hey man, like, I don't know what you do to prepare yourself. I don't know what you do to cope, but whatever you're doing now is kind of unhealthy, and we need to work on that. You know?
Or fight fire with fire, right? But your fire is positivity. It's for all the negative shit they're spewing, turn it on them and say, yeah, but it's negative because you made it be that way. And so try to fight it with positivity. Be like, hey man, let's go get a cup of coffee real quick.
Yeah.
Chill out if they are coffee drinkers or whatever else, and, or hey, why don't we, if they're a smoker, like, hey man, why don't you go take 5 at the pit,
Yep.
And I mean, the smoke pit's another therapeutic place on a lot of airfields. A lot of things are hashed out, discussed, talked about, whatever else.
Right.
There, and maybe that's all they need. Maybe they just, you don't know what's going on out in their lives outside of work that's infecting their work life, and
right.
It's not for you to get too involved with, but maybe they just needed somebody to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just try to fight the negativity with positivity.
Yep. I remember, like, what drove us to start the podcast too is, like, other technicians, they'll use us as their pregame. Like, they have their meetings of what the task needs to get done and stuff. And as soon as that assignment meeting is over, they'll come straight to us and they'll just kind of vent. Like, all right, I'm here for my my pre-work therapy, right? Like, oh, cool. Just pull up a seat and time starts now.
But that's what it takes, like we mentioned just in the episode prior to this, we in our last position, we were a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And even in my current position, I feel like I do therapy work. Maybe that's just who I am. I just talk to people. I learn about where they're from, what they do, how they got to where they're at, what's going on in their personal lives, without sounding like I'm digging in for information. Just like, hey man, what's going on? What you got planned for the weekend? What's for dinner tonight? That's one of the biggest questions I ask for a lot of people, and I do it every day. Like, hey man, what are we having for dinner tonight?
Yep.
And like, oh, you know what? I don't know. We don't really have anything. My wife and I don't really have anything planned. Maybe this, maybe that. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm gonna have this. I'm like, oh, that sounds good, and that gets them thinking about that. And then they're like running to text their spouse or their girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, hey, let's go do this tonight. That sounds really good, and then that puts the other person in a better mood, and it's just things like that I find, just asking those certain questions put you and people in a better mood,
right? And then it boils down to, like, just giving a shit about yourself and then the people around you too, right? If you see someone's kind of in a slump, or they have that cloud over their head, like, hey, let's go grab some coffee, like you said, or hey, go take 5 in the smoke pit. You never know. That just might be the 180 and that person needed for the day. Like, someone gives a shit, or here's my sign that I should give, that I need to slow down for whatever the case may be. Right.
Right.
You'll also find some individuals where they'll do these pregame rituals, or they'll change it up, and it's more so addressing the symptom itself and not like the cause of it, right? Example is like, they feel overwhelmed, so they go take a couple drags in the smoke pit, where what their real problem is like they're just not, they're they're having issues at home and it's compounding, right? They're not addressing the actual issue. They're just dancing around it by creating all these rituals to avoid whatever's causing the problem, you know?
Or they're feeling unfulfilled at work, but it's a good job. So they're having this internal back and forth of, man, I want to leave this and try something new, but I feel bad because it's such a good job that I'd be a fool to give it up, you know, and everything else. And I've been in that position, like you go back and forth. And so you're like, maybe it's just me. I just changed my mindset. The job's not that bad. So you do all these things and sometimes you get through it and other times you don't, but sometimes just getting through it, that might help you last, you know, another few months.
Right.
Until the next thing. And if it happens again, or like you said earlier, more times than not, then yeah, maybe it's time to step away. But it's little things, you know, it could be as simple as, hey, I took my vitamins today and I feel good because of that. I know those are doing something for me.
Right. Or I read my affirmation of the day and that hit home just it was the right thing I needed to see at that moment. Right. And
yeah.
So that can definitely be one of the bigger things. But like you were alluding to is like sometimes it's one of those like ping pong back and forth. Like, is it me or is it the place? Is it me or is it the place? Right. And when you start having those kind of battles, it's typically one or the other. And you kind of start wondering like, well, what's really causing me to feel this way? Right. Am I unfulfilled? Is it stuff at home that's getting me? Is it the day is just going too fast? Do I need to take a vacation? You know, do I just need to recharge? Stuff like that, right? And some people tend to overthink these issues, and then they start coming up with extreme remedies, right? Like for instance, like I need to lose weight, so they'll just do crash dieting, or like the wrestlers' weight loss diet, where they just eat nothing and drink nothing but water for like so many days, and they cut like 15 pounds in like 2 hours or some shit like that.
Yeah.
You know, like that's cool if you're going to do a weigh-in or like if you're actually going to wrestle or do something significant, but like to do that as like a go-to for everything, you know, that's unsustainable. Right.
Right.
I've seen some where like they'll do some version of a crash diet and they'll drop weight like it's cool, like 20 pounds in like, I don't know, 3 weeks or some shit like that. And then they'll think, okay, I'm happy, it's working. And then they'll gain all of it back and they'll crash down even further. Right. So they'll get like a nice pep me up and then they'll sink lower. And so their remedy is like, well, this worked last time. So they'll try it again and then they'll sink even lower. They'll start digging that hole deeper than how they originally had it. When all the problem was like, you know what, man, I just like, I'm gonna make a positive decision for myself and then slowly work my way into it. Right. Just kind of ease it into it. Then instead of coming with these drastic fixes. And then you start digging holes that you never meant to in the first place.
I know one thing that gets me down is like if I feel like I wasted my weekend.
Yeah.
So if I should have cleaned up around, you know, and you usually have those thoughts when you're at work Monday morning or whatever, but I should have done this in the garage yesterday, or I should have done this in the backyard, or I should have cleaned up here, or I should have took the family and went here or whatever else, you know, and so I have those. That's what gets me down a lot is like I'll be at work and I'll be thinking I'll get in a bad mood because I'm like, damn, I wasted the weekend. Yeah. I didn't do anything. I was tired. I was wrung out from the last week. You know, all I did was sleep and eat chips and, you know, just I was hanging out with the family, but we didn't do anything type deal.
Right.
And so then I start having those negative thoughts. So one thing I've tried to do lately is like, okay, I'm going to plan one thing for the weekend. It might just be going to the park, right? With the kids or whatever else. But hey, we're out of the house. We're doing something where, hey, you know, I'm going to clean up in the garage and I'm going to do a couple of things in there. And I've, you know, one little thing at a time, but I knocked it out and got it done. So I'm like, hey, at least I got that tiny little piece taken care of. And, or, hey, I got errands I need to run, or I need to meet with the bank or whatever else. And just those little things. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, you know, we've been hanging out with a lot of family friends, been a lot of kids' birthday parties, but still, I mean, we've made the most of those moments and had as much fun as we possibly could. And, you know, and those are give you something to look forward to and give you something to think back and laugh on.
Yeah.
And so those are some for me, like maximizing your time off, right? Time off is super important to me.
Yes.
And a lot of people, oh, they want the overtime, they want this. Yeah, I've worked the overtime, I've done all that, I've been away for a long time. I'm not after that anymore.
Right.
What I'm after now is my time away from work is super valuable.
Yep.
So that's why, when I waste the weekend, I feel like, man, I should have freaking done something else. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
So little things like that, like just planning something small for the next weekend ahead. It could be even as simple as like, hey, we're just going to go out to breakfast Saturday morning. Hey, that's something to look forward to.
Yes. One thing that does get me down too is like I feel like I put in so much work throughout the week, and then I see my paycheck, on payday. I'm like, and the first thing that goes through my mind is like, okay, how happy am I really going to be once all my bills are through, And
oh yeah,
so I start dwelling on that. I'm like, am I really just here to work to pay bills and then die, and
those it's almost like an existential crisis, right? You start like, man, there's got to be more to it than this.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a coworker tell me years ago when I first started out, and I still to this day, I'm still guilty of it, just like yourself. You get hung up on money, and you start thinking like, man, I paid all my bills, which is cool, but there's only this amount left over to go into savings, or maybe not even to go into savings. Maybe it's got to go to groceries this week or something. I don't know. And then you start looking at like your friends, and you start looking at other people and go, how do they do it?
Right.
How do they afford it? How do they get these nice things? Like, how come they're driving new vehicles, and how come they can go on these nice trips and I can't? And that comparing yourself to others, man, like I said, I'm guilty of it, will drive you way down. It just starts making you hate everything, hate what you're doing, hate yourself. You start taking those aggressions out on the family.
Yes.
It's just no good all the way around. So so getting back to the original point, what I learned from my coworker was, hey, money comes and goes. Sometimes it's feast, sometimes it's famine. Don't get hung up on it.
Yes.
If you need it, it'll be there.
Yep.
And I started thinking, I was like, if I need it, it'll be there. What the hell does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it just doesn't pop out of the thin air. But it's one of those, is you when you really need it, you do what's necessary to obtain it, i.e. working overtime or picking up a secondary job or whatever the case may be. And I was like, oh, that's a good point.
Right.
Money comes and goes. And so trying not to get hung up on that, you just do you and what's best for you and your family.
Right.
And that just puts you in a better place.
Right. And what I've been doing lately, on top of that, is it's called sympathetic grounding. Right. It's kind of like what people with anxiety do. Like they tell them to like count 5 things in the room, or identify 5 things with your senses and stuff like that. That's like physical grounding, right? That's like telling yourself like what's around and what's available. There's another one. It's called sympathetic grounding, where like you talk positive to yourself, right? Because majority of us especially nowadays in today's world, we're conditioned to bash ourselves, right? Like, I could have done this better. I should have done this first, or whatever, right? Or I should have got this done during the weekend, stuff like that. But like saying positive stuff to yourself, like, well, at least I pay my bills today, so that's a win, or I'm able to buy groceries. That's a win, right? Or you're doing a fantastic job. You're doing the best you can. You're doing this and that. Like something like trending, taking yourself out of the negative and start turning it, and start telling yourself positive things to kind of reaffirm that, you're not just about paying bills and dying. and another one is,
sorry, go ahead.
And so another one's like you're saying, like the money will come when you need it, right? That's a big one that I've been saying a lot to myself lately. Is like, like the bills are bills. It's always gonna happen. But if you need money, it's gonna be there. And you're resourceful enough, and there's ways to get it if it really boils down to it, right? Like you're never gonna be so stuck where everything's gonna come crashing and burning,
No, and plus you got friends and family that'll help you if it's really dire as well.
Right.
You know, you're not doing it alone. I think that's what a lot of people get in on. Like, damn, I'm out here by myself. Nah, 90% of the population is just like you, wondering the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the bill paying thing, like you're like, man, I paid all my bills and that's it. But you could flip the script. I paid all my bills. I was actually able to pay every bill this month. You know,
right.
I have no debt. Stuff like that. Like, that's one of those things. So back to my point of like, man, how do these other people do it? Driving all these, you know, living in a huge home, driving these nice cars, this and that. And you go, but I'm debt free.
Right.
Are they? Probably not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They might be, but they might be in the other side. Like, damn, how are we going to make the bill payments this month?
Right.
You don't know. You don't know. Maybe they got it. Maybe they don't. But you shouldn't focus on what others have. And again, I'm guilty of it myself. It's a hard thing not to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can just focus on you and yours and your family, like, hey, we was able to pay every bill this month, pay for groceries, whatever, and we were still able to go out to dinner. Man, that's a win.
That's a big win, right? And I think another one too that really drives that negativity or that comparison tool between yourself and others is social media, right? Like you see someone like having a grand ass time, or they're at a park or at a like somewhere fun, right? And they're posting pictures of it and stuff like that. For all you know, that's like their one release in like months of not doing a fucking thing. But you don't see that. You just see like, oh, they're having a grand ass time and I'm not, right? So again, like what social media says or shows and what's actually going on or can be completely different things. And that goes into the things like you shouldn't compare. Your happiness shouldn't be a comparison tool. You should really just have it assessed to yourself and what, like you said, what you and your family needs or what you and what your priorities need. Because again, like I paid all my bills. I love paying rent what the rents do. That's a win. That's a huge win because then you have some individuals who have to skip bills to have room to pay the ones they have going right now. So they're always past due on something. Right.
Well, and you brought up the social media thing. You know, back to the witch doctor remedies. Social media is great, but mostly terrible. Because you start comparing yourself to others on there, right? You, like you just said, you see others living that bougie lifestyle and you want it too. But like you said, it might only be, you don't know what's really going on behind the scenes. They might not even be at Disneyland. They just out front and took the picture and then they left. You know, they just happen to be driving by. You don't know what's going on with them, or like, oh, I'm on a private jet. Yeah, but they paid somebody just to sit on it and take a picture. Like you don't know what's going on. That's the negative side of social media. Or you get into arguments with people on there over some dumb stuff, and they're just arguing to argue. They don't care about the topic that you might be very passionate about. They're just arguing to argue. That's what the internet is.
Right.
Stay away from it. It's toxic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously everything's done through social media anymore. You know, like even our podcasting stuff, you have to interact on social media with fans, whatever else. You're going to have the negative stuff, but just try not to interact with the negative comments and just keep doing what, obviously there's fans and stuff out there, but maybe read a book that could be helpful as well. Just turning off the electronics and picking up an actual paperback book in your hands.
Right.
And reading a fact or fiction,
Right. Yeah.
Whatever you're into.
Right. And again, it's like, it's all to like push out the negative and drive up the positive, right? And perception is everything. Sometimes you gotta have the perception work for you. Like if it feels like it's working, then hey, maybe it's one of those like if you feel like it's working, then you'll start acting like it's working. I can't remember the phrase. I'm alluding to like this one scene in Heartbreak Ridge, where like. You start looking like it, you'll start feeling like it, and then soon someday you'll start being like it, right? Like
that's a fake it. Is that the original version of Fake It Till You Make It?
Kind of like it, So what I'm alluding to in Heartbreak Ridge, right, is he tells everyone to come outside to go for a run, and they say they all have to dress the same, and so they all show up with the same shirt and everything, and then here comes Clint Eastwood in a totally different shirt, and he goes, "Well, everyone take all your shirts off." I'm like, what the fuck? We're all the same. And he goes, well, same as me. and and then he starts talking shit about their haircuts, about their shave and all this and that. He's just being like a real stickler for discipline. And he goes, one of these days you'll start looking like Marines, or like you're gonna start looking like Marines. Someday you'll start feeling like Marines, and goddamn it, one day you'll start acting like Marines. I'm like, oh my god, my brain, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the way there's dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Yes, that's pretty much it, right? Like
type thing. Yeah,
yeah. So it's kind of like believe to achieve, right? Or
yeah,
or what's another one? Like dress for success, stuff like that, right? Like you like be what you want, like start acting like what you want to be instead of like saying, oh, I'll do it later. I can only get there if I did this, stuff like that. Like that's gonna come. That's all gonna come when we're baby stepping it. But if you start having that mentality now, then when things start going left and right and changing, you still have the eyes on the prize of what you want to accomplish, right? And only something completely drastic and unforeseen will stop you from doing it.
Yeah, I mean, don't everybody's life's on a different time schedule.
Yes.
Just because you're not where you think you should be doesn't mean you won't get there. It comes in time.
Yes.
You know, and we make subtle changes to right the ship and get us back on course if we feel like we've fallen off. But just little things here and there, you know, can make the difference.
Yeah.
Just your mindset alone. What does my wife always say? She got me a book and it's called The Secret.
Yep.
But it's essentially the power of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of talks about how powerful it is. And if you want something, you put it out. Hey, I want to be able to buy a home in eventually, or in the next 5 years or something like that.
Right.
And you basically you say it and you send it out to the universe. And then you forget it. And the universe and subtly, like, your mind is doing things. You don't realize you're doing it,
mm-hmm.
but subtly your mind is, and your actions over the next 5 years is all making changes. And next thing you know, you're buying a home. But it's essentially, you don't dwell on it. You just, I want this, and then you move on. And subconsciously, you're making all these changes to achieve that goal, but you don't really realize it as it's happening. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting the way the book's written, but it's called The Secret. But back to, it's one of kind of those witch doctor things, right? You say it, you put it out to the universe, and the universe will provide, type deal.
Right. Yes. And I was going to give another example of that, but you pretty much nailed it. Another one is like, say, A&P students, right? They just see like, oh, here we go, another day in class, right? They start losing sight, or they start thinking that their student status is never going to end. Or an apprentice, for instance, especially if it's like a 4-year apprenticeship, right? It's like, I'm just here turning wheels, and I don't see an end in sight and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. Again, like, put it out there, have the mindset like you're already getting towards it, like absorb it, and then take your mind off, because you keep dwelling on this, it's just going to keep festering into you, and then you're eventually just going to give up altogether because it was too hard, it was too long, whatever the case may be, right? But like what MVP was saying, like, just put it down, however you set a goal, or however you pregame yourself, and then take your mind off it, right? I mean, not saying forget it altogether, but you know, like, don't focus on the worry, focus more on the steps, you know?
Right. Yeah, and it comes in time.
Yes, exactly. Like, we've all been there. We've all been the day oneers at one point, and the only way to get to where you want is to make it to day 2 and just take it at that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So
it can only, and I used this saying years ago overseas, and we were having just a couple of really bad weeks in a row, just things breaking, long days, this and that. But I would always tell the guys, it can only last 12 hours. And they're like, what? It can only last 12 hours. What can only last 12 hours? This misery we're in right now. Yeah, we're busting our ass, and it's hot, and we're whatever else, and nothing seems to be working right. And it's just, problem after problem. But I was like, our problems can only last 12 hours. What do you mean they can only last 12 hours? I said, yeah, because it's 12 hours and the next guys are coming on shift and it's their problem for 12 hours. And then you get to decompress for 12 and then come back in and hopefully they're resolved. But if they're not, we pick it back up and go. But just know that your problems are only there 12 hours at a time.
Right.
And it really, one individual specifically, but he really took it to heart. And every time it was something shitty would happen, he'd be like, gonna last 12 hours, man. And he would move on. It was like, he would say that to himself.
Yep.
Like it'd be really, and he would out loud be like, it can only last 12 hours. And he'd move on and continue doing what he had to do.
Yep.
So that's kind of how I view it. It can only last for a certain amount of time.
Right. So this reminds me especially of when I was in boot camp. Almost everybody would have like a calendar. We all have like these little notebooks that was supposed to be like our Marine Corps Bible, right? Like had like every last bit of Marine knowledge that you could ever get tested on, get asked for, or expected to know, stuff like that. And everyone had like a calendar in their book about, okay, this is day 1 and this is graduation day, and they'll slowly check mark it off, kind of like scratching tick marks on a prison wall. And
yeah, but
what I would do, or what I did, and what a couple other people did, is we would just have like the meal schedule, right? And we'd all have a watch, and we'll have a meal schedule, like breakfast is at this, or wake up is at this time, breakfast is at this time, lunch, dinner, and whatever, right? And the reason why we did that is because your day's gonna suck no matter what. That's just military life in basic training, or whatever your initial training is gonna be. It's gonna suck. It's supposed to suck, and that's the whole point. But myself and a few will just say like, well, we wake up, we have breakfast, we go through like 3 or 4 hours of bullshit, and then there's lunch. And then 3 to 4 hours of more bullshit, then there's dinner, and then 3 to 4 more hours, and you go to sleep. So he would say like, we kind of make this a chant to ourselves, like, we'll just make it to lunch or just make it to dinner, because that's a guaranteed break, right? They can only fuck with you so much when you're eating. So like everyone's like, oh my God, I still got 99 more days until I graduate, or whatever the case may be. Like, bro, it's 2 more hours to chow. I'm cool.
Yeah, that's how you have to do it. Whatever works for you. Like I even do that now. I'm like, I set milestones in the day. Okay, I get to work at this time. Okay, lunch is at this time, and then after that, it's go home time.
Yep.
So you can only, like you said, you can only be messed with for so long. And if you can break it up like that, and the way you said that, Six, I remember listening on, I think it was Jocko's podcast, and he had one of the SEALs that was with him.
Yep.
With him on there, and he mentioned the same thing during their Hell Week.
Yep.
He was like, "Yep." He's like, I just got to get to lunch. That's all I got to do. I just got to get to lunch, and then I just got to get to dinner.
Yep.
And then at that point, I know every day they're going to do a med check, and I just got to get to med check. I just got to make sure I'm well enough to get through med check, and then moving on.
Yep.
But just breaking it up down, like you said, hour to hour, minute to minute, whatever. Takes your mind, and it's like you said, the mind's a powerful thing.
Yep.
And how you can just trick it into working for you.
Yeah. Matter of fact, yeah. Now that you mentioned that, it's all coming full circle now. Oh my God. Oh my God. I did it. I didn't realize it. The universe has spoken. Final thoughts, awesome. MVP.
No, I think we pretty much covered it all. Like I said, your daily rituals, your what you need to do to make your day better, whether it's physical work, whether it's spiritual work, whether it's visual work. If it works for you, then it works. Doesn't matter if somebody else says, "Oh, that's just hocus pocus crap, BS, whatever." If it works for you and it changes your mind and puts you in a positive mood, hey, keep doing what you're doing.
Right. Or like in some people's cases, right, their cope is to be super organized, right? Be it an app, a calendar, whatever. Like they break things down by milestones per day, per hour, per whatever. If that works, that works. And that's kind of like your personal psych out, right? Like, I just got to make it to task B, or I just got to make it to lunch. I just got to make it to whatever.
And that's how I am. I'm very regimented.
Yep.
I like to have certain things done at certain times every day.
Yep.
And my wife is not that way. She's very spontaneous, likes to go with the flow, but I am one of those. at this time this happens, at this time this happens, at this time this happens. And that's how I chisel away my days.
Right.
And that's what works for me.
Yes. And again, like if it works, it works. Don't blame the witch doctor. That's just how it happens.
That's how it goes.
This is how it goes. But if it works for you, it works. Hey, no complaints. As long as it's not unsafe or unhealthy, it's fine. It'll do.
It'll do.
It'll do, donkey. It'll do. All right. On that note, thanks everybody.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
We'd like to take this time to thank our patrons for supporting our show and allowing us to continue to make episodes, maintain our gear, and create merch for all of our listeners, with special thanks to Erica Lamont, Chris Hawkins, Ryan Freshour, Dan Schubert, Jenny Dignan, and the ladies of the Dick Talk and Mimosas podcast. Thank you all so much for your support and patronage. Visit our shop at cancelformaintenance.com and grab some swag to show off both your support for us and your prowess as an aircraft technician. If you have ideas for the show or you'd like to be a guest on the show, visit our contact us section and send us a line. We will do what we can to get your ideas or yourself on the show. You can also follow us on social media, such as on Facebook at Cancel for Maintenance, Instagram at Canx, that's CANX for Maintenance Podcast, or on Twitter at CXMX Podcast. Check out some of our affiliates like Rockwell Time, where they make both rugged and classy watches to fit your lifestyle. Use the code CX4MX and save 10% off your purchase. Support us on Patreon. Our patrons get exclusive perks such as access to our Discord, discounts and early access to merch, special patron-only episodes, and so much more. Thank you again so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.